The idea, insight, or secret you need for massive impact is just moments away. It's time to claim your career crown. The podcast where business owners and entrepreneurs share the keys to the kingdom to help you open the vault to your greater success. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Whitback, and today I'm joined by our special guest, Danielle Brzusek. Today, we're going to be talking about building a supportive world for people with invisible disabilities. You know, everyone has unique perspectives, ideas, and experiences to contribute to our work and life. Building an environment that supports each individual is paramount to facilitating those contributions. Now, if you get a ton of value from this episode, I'd love to invite you to subscribe because it costs nothing to subscribe. Now, Danielle is an educator, an accomplished corporate professional with a passion for holistic health, mental fitness, and personal empowerment. With a background as a senior corporate paralegal, she brings strong leadership, training, and organizational skills to her work. Drawing from her journey with invisible disabilities, Danielle empowers individuals and organizations to overcome limiting beliefs, build resilience, and thrive. She's also a dynamic speaker, including topics like embracing hidden disabilities, and the owner of a luxury pet care business. Danielle inspires audiences to reframe challenges and cultivate well-being in both personal and professional spheres. Danielle, I am so excited to have you here on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, we've really gotten to know each other, and I'm so excited to have you here. But I want us to really sort of start, because this is some things that I don't know, is about your journey with invisible disabilities and how it drives your work today.
Well, I'll go back to my sophomore year in high school. I literally was in the classroom and I had a principal call me out and say, Danielle Brzusek, come to the principal's office. And as I'm walking down the hallway, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what did I ever do? Because the principal office is serious. And so I walk in and my mom is sitting there. And I look at my mom. She kind of looks at me. And the principal says, go ahead and sit down. So I sat down. And the principal proceeded to sit there and tell my mom and I that I would be lucky if I graduated high school.
Oh, wow.
So from that day forward, I'll tell you right then, I was absolutely crushed because my dream was to graduate high school and go to college.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to let anything get in my way. And so that day, she tried to convince me otherwise. So as I left, my mom being an amazing, supportive woman, she just kind of hugged me and looked at me and said, we'll figure it out. Don't get discouraged. And I looked at her and I said, don't worry. I said, I have fuel in my belly right now and we're going to figure this out. And I walked back down the hallway and I almost felt, instead of defeated, I almost felt like I'm going to prove her wrong. And so I got back in there and later on I went ahead and started researching what kind of things that I could do, what kind of tools could I put in. I already had a tutor coming 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I played sports, so I excelled in sports. And so where all that mindset came in such a short period right after the teacher told me that I'd be lucky if I graduated from high school was from soccer and tennis, because when I got on the soccer field or the tennis court, all I cared about was either the tennis ball or the soccer ball and winning and not letting the soccer ball go behind me and have the other team win. So I kind of took that day automatically. It was just already embedded in me. So my mom and I researched and we found a high school that was back east in Boston, Massachusetts called Landmark School. And so I was very fortunate that my mom and I were able to go. And once again, I showed up on the doorstep or showed up for the tour. And within 5 minutes, I sat there, told the headmaster, I'm ready to come. This is where I need to be in order to get to college. And told my mom to go pack up my clothes. I was staying there. And the headmaster, you could tell, was kind of like, how am I going to tell her that we don't have openings right now? So I had to wait till my junior year, the second half. So I went the last year and a half, and I went from a CDF student to an AB student and honor society.
Wow.
And
That's
then I didn't stop there. I continued on to get my college degree and first my AA degree, college degree, and my paralegal certificate. So I talk to people about my personal story, tell them, honestly, that there has been hard times. There has been times that I've gone home and I felt defeated
yeah.
mindset wise, but how did I build myself out of it? And so that's kind of what drives me. I have wanted, since I graduated high school, I have wanted to talk about it and get out there and tell people that hidden disabilities don't define you.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, what are the day-to-day challenges and barriers faced by people with invisible disabilities?
It can be many. So, first of all, hidden disabilities or invisible disabilities can fall under any multiple categories. It could be depression, it could be PTSD, it could be anxiety, it could be, let me think, ADD, ADHD. My particular hidden disability is that I have an auditory processing disorder. So I like to describe it the best way is that when I'm writing, my brain and my pen have a standoff because I have all the thoughts up here, but when I go to write it, it doesn't come out in the same way. And or the other way I like to describe it is saying that you have a computer screen, but the monitor's not hooked up to the computer, so you can't see anything. So there's like a disconnect. Um, so those are a lot of the hidden disabilities, and on a daily basis, even today in work. Sometimes if I focus for like 4 or 5 hours, my brain literally kind of goes blank. And so if I don't take those breaks
Yeah.
and let my brain kind of recharge, the other thing is that if I'm at one point I had to disclose it to my employer, and this is the first time I've ever disclosed it to an employer because they were kind of wanting me to go more towards contracts. And I was more in the corporate side and I wanted to stay there. So I had to explain to them why I was not successful over on contracts. It's not that I can't do it, it's just that it takes me much longer than some other people. And then I needed more added tools. One of the tools that I use to help me write emails is Grammarly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That makes
So,
sense.
and it can show up in so many different ways too. Anxiety can just come over somebody when they're, just standing there.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
so
absolutely. Yeah.
finding
No.
tools for the toolbox is so important.
So, how can we build a world that better supports people with invisible disabilities? And one thing is definitely those tools and being open to using those toolboxes, right?
Yeah, definitely. I say the biggest thing is if somebody recognizes that they have some sort of a hidden disability or invisible disability, just be proud of it and go and talk to people and find out what tools can help you. Really hone in on what it is. So for me, when I was going to school, I would have tapes, I would have books on tape. So I had to listen to it, I had to see it and write it. And so with that, I would comprehend it. And then the other thing is instead of multiple choice tests, which was happening at the first high school that I was at, and that's why I was getting C's, D's, and F's, I would ask for oral tests, or I would ask for essay tests, because I was able to take the content from my brain, read whatever the question was, and as you would say, and regurgitate it back, and be able to provide them with the answers. When it came to multiple choice tests, my brain just wasn't comprehending it.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
no.
find what works for you. And for me, it was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that the fact that you were able to go to the different school, obviously such a huge game changer for you. And that really brings us to what are those main challenges to creating supportive environments for people with invisible disabilities. I mean, you had to go clear across the country to a different school.
That school was amazing. It was a small school, and they focused mainly on people that had learning disabilities, ADD, ADHD. So the teachers were specialized in that. And so they were able to, even though we weren't cookie cutter, each one of us learned differently, each one of us, was able to regurgitate differently. They provided us the tools. For example, maybe go ahead and be separated from the classroom for your test taking because you need a quieter environment, right? Um, they were the ones that suggested that when I go to college that I get the books on tape plus writing it plus reading it. I was not doing that prior to that. I was just reading and thinking, "Oh, I know, I comprehended it," when in reality I wasn't. Um, and then, just being organized. They helped us to be organized because there's some people that just can't be organized. And
Yeah,
so they really honed in on breaking large projects down into just baby steps
right.
and breaking them into smaller manageable steps. And they talked about, identifying what your challenges are, really getting to hone in on with them, and then identifying what your strengths are, because that's the most important, is the strengths. A lot of us, we have amazing abilities in some areas. For me, verbally, I can sit here and nobody would even begin to think that I had an invisible disability. But when I write, it's a different story.
Yeah. No, I mean, that makes absolute sense. And also breaking down tasks, a big job into smaller jobs always is more effective. I mean, it can be as simple as, as I mentioned before, I've got a team member who's packing up a home to move. Well, when you look at it in its whole, it's almost overwhelming. And even in a room, but if you work on one section of the room and that one section, and after a few days, all of a sudden you're seeing lots of progress, right? Because you broke it down. And then a week, maybe you've got the whole room packed up or
Mhm.
whatever. But it's so important that I think that applies universally, but I can see how it would especially be important with the hidden disabilities or invisible disabilities, that you can really, you know, move things that you might consider a weakness, but everything has a shadow or a sunshine side, and then look for that and apply that so that you can, um, really put a solution together that works well for you.
One of the things that I really start to work on is kind of explain about the soccer and then my mindset for soccer, and how I kind of took that into my school that day. And I wasn't going to let her limit my belief that I was going to college. There has been days, even through high school, that I would get frustrated.
Yeah.
Until I went to Landmark, I would show up, I would study 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours before a test. And I would be like, yes, I'm going to ace it this time. And the person next to me would literally show up and study 5 minutes and get an A, and I'd get a D. And so
Oh,
there were a lot of days that I would go home just frustrated and,
yeah.
you know, that I couldn't show them that I knew this information.
Right.
And, back then they didn't have a lot of the plans that they have now for accommodations.
Yeah.
So I had to advocate for myself. I even had to do that in college. I
Yeah.
had to tell them specifically what I needed. Um, and some teachers would provide it to me, and some teachers wouldn't.
Yeah.
So I had a little bit of that before I went to Landmark, but then Landmark really helped me to hone in and figure out what exactly, my challenges were and what exactly my strengths were, and then kind of put them together.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I have a question for you. So why does creating a world that supports people with disabilities, matter to everyone? And granted, that should be a rhetorical question, but in today's world, let's talk about that.
I think it's so important because we should all be inclusive and really look at our differences as strengths. Hidden disabilities don't define us. The hardest part is a lot of people think, well, that person's lazy, right? Maybe the task is overwhelming and they're wanting to do laundry or go to the bathroom or go do other things rather than homework. And then automatically there's a stigma that they're lazy, but it may not be the case. I think having empathy is the biggest thing. Having empathy and knowing that you may be talking to somebody that has a hidden disability, and being aware of that. And then, just working through, I think education is a big one. And that was the number one reason why I wanted to get out and start speaking to all levels. I just spoke just 2 days ago
Okay.
to my 13-year-old, his class. And I went in for 30 minutes and talked to them about, invisible disabilities and hidden disabilities. And it was an amazing discussion. And I mean, I'm sure I probably got, a few of the kids thinking. And then I spoke to just lawyers about a month ago. It was education and, lawyers and, juvenile correction agents, etc. And so you can tell that it's a wide range that I talk
Yeah.
to.
Oh,
Um,
well, it affects everyone.
mhm, it
Yeah.
does. And so I think having empathy and just understanding that if somebody has a certain behavior, it may not be that they're lazy. It may be that there's legitimately something else that's going on and they may not even be aware of it.
Yeah.
And so just communicating and having people be aware of what it is. Um, and, being inclusive no matter what.
Yeah. No, I mean, one of the things is that you having people with, that different perspective and they come at it and they look at things differently, they're actually going to catch things. They're going to evaluate things. They're going to bring things to the table that you haven't thought of, because you've
Hmm.
got your own set of blinders on, your own little paradigm that you're in. And it's incredibly powerful when you really embrace, that diversity of thought and from people who have come at life from very different journeys. So it's really very well. So, Danielle, what is something that our listeners here today, the people who are watching, can do to build a more supportive environment and culture for people with disabilities?
Oh, let's see. That's a good one. um, I would say the biggest thing is to, just understand and have empathy. I just keep going back to empathy. Um, educating yourself, especially if you are an HR director or anything like that when it comes to work. A lot of people do not feel comfortable to disclose.
Yeah.
They're afraid that, they'll be judged. They're
Yeah.
afraid that they'll be, the employer may think that, they're a liar or that they're, just making it up or, something. I think the biggest thing is the employers, especially the HR people, understanding, educating themselves, seeing what are some accommodations out there for people in case someone comes to them and disclose. Um, Empathy is the biggest one, and try not to judge, and seek to understand the individual and where they're coming from.
Yeah. Be curious.
Yeah.
Be curious. Oh, well, Danielle, last thing, is there anything you wish that I had asked you that I have not?
Um, I can't think of one right now other than that I'm writing a book. Well, not a full book. I'm a co-author in a book. And I just wrote one chapter about my hidden disability because it was resilience. So maybe what future things that I have on my plan.
Yeah. Well, resilience is definitely something very important for everyone, but definitely on this topic. And thank you, Danielle, so much for sharing building a supportive world for people with invisible disabilities. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more about you and how they can connect with you. Could you share that, please?
Absolutely. You can connect with me at www.danielledoeshealth.com. And soon there will be a checklist coming on the website. And the checklist is a guide to help manage your hidden disability proactively, ensure you have the support and accommodations necessary to thrive. This is also a checklist that can be used for people that may not even have a hidden disability.
Yeah.
So some of the examples would be like personal organization, and breaking down, tasks into smaller manageable steps, and communication. So those are a couple of them.
That's amazing. And I'm sure that's going to be so useful. I am so excited about that. And to everyone here who tuned in today and who are listening to the show, watching it later, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your being part of the Claim Your Career Crown audience. This type of informative discussion is so important to bring to the forefront. And Danielle, thank you for shedding light on this today. It's been such a pleasure. I'm so glad that you were here with me.
Thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate you taking the time.
What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? I would love to hear about it. It's important to share the things you love. If you loved this episode, a 5-star review really helps keep the podcast coming to you regularly. Also, if you want to get more sales strategies to grow your business, make sure you subscribe right now. If you want to get results even faster, I invite you to download my sales strategy checklist at petitetoqueen.com/checklist. This has been Lynn Whitbeck, host of Claim Your Career Crown. I'll see you next time.